man. Let's kill that bass head. Alright, let's do this. I'm on the air, we got this pockets flow. It's me and Tony on the mics, we gotta let you know of current events, little gaming, sprinkling some entertainment. We stay humble, but our moms still think we're famous. Turn up the bass and baby, maybe let that magic flow. Our spoken word is all the things you really wanna know. Having a good time on the show, T-Bows and Matty G. Tune in and hit subscribe and join us on the FAP.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Freaking Awesome Podcast. I am your host, Anthony Bowes, and Matty G could not make it this evening, but that is all right because we are amongst royalty. We have our Scream Queen, none other than Genoveva Rossi. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. It's
Very
awesome.
wonderful. Oh, I'm so happy that you can be here on the show today. I was mentioning you before the show started. It just wouldn't be a Halloween special if we didn't have the Queen of Scream here with us. So it's absolutely amazing with your roster of Halloween movies. It definitely puts you up there for years and years of royalty work. As like I said, you're kind of a famous celebrity of the horror genre amongst many other things that you do. But it's hopefully we can give everybody a little something thrilling for our pre-Halloween show. So this is kind of our last. We have 2 more episodes left to the end of our Faptober celebration, and here we are.
Yeah, it is almost Halloween this Saturday already. So yeah, we're getting kind of tight. So I'm glad you were able to squeeze me in right before Halloween. Yeah. Halloween's like my busy season, both as like a horror actress and I'm also a professional fortune teller and tarot card reader.
Oh, fantastic! We've had one other a reader that came onto the show at one point, and it was very chilling, the amount of things that, of course, were totally applicable to my life and my family. So it was very,
Sometimes
very.
it's kind of creepy, right?
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, and we had this conversation about how like energy works, right? I mean, with everybody, of course, essentially your body is made of energy, and so is your soul, if you will. So when you are released from this mortal coil, where does that energy go, right? So and that was his kind of assessment of things is when he gets this feeling or these answers that come through, it could be guardian angels, it could be just the energy of loved ones that have passed on that kind of passes on to him. So it was a very interesting aspect that I hadn't really thought too much about, but very, very cool. I used to always have a joke with friends that whenever the psychic readings and stuff would come into town, I would say, I'm a little skeptical at sometimes. I kind of want to stand by one of the booths and like think really weird thoughts and just wait for someone to poke their head up over the cubicle and look around and be like, who's thinking that? But that may have been my ignorance as to how everything worked back when I was young.
Oh yeah, well then people's interest, as you were saying, in like the paranormal, the supernatural, and in the psychic phenomenon, I think is deeply rooted in wanting to believe in an afterlife, wanting to believe in destiny and fate and the universe and all that kind of stuff. It's very it's deeply spiritual too, right?
So, as you mentioned, with the season upon us of everything mystical and things that go bump in the night, you were quite busy. I think I remember seeing somewhere on, I think it was Facebook or something, that you were actually quite busy doing a lot of readings, and you kind of travel around a lot to do them.
Yeah, I was actually just in Utica and Rome, which is not too far from like the Buffalo, Upper New York State area, doing readings and things like that. I usually do a bunch of events every year. This year was a little bit weird with events because we had certain provisions in place for the pandemic and things like that. But I'm a firm believer that I think we have to try to live our lives and just be as safely as we possibly can during this time.
Yeah,
We want to
100%.
try to push forward, but as safely as possible, whatever recommendations that are put out there for us.
Mhm.
And yeah, and then horror movies and things like that. this time of year, usually we would have guest appearance at conventions and things like that. That's happening
Mhm.
a little bit less so now. Some places are doing gatherings and conventions to a certain degree. Like I just had an appearance that I did in Smithville, New Jersey last weekend, which was an outdoor event for
Okay.
Halloween.
Mhm.
So that was fun, and we got a really good turnout.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm very happy that in this particular industry, the amount of people that have pushed forward, regardless of everything that's been going on, and still made things happen for the fans, because really that's what it comes down to, right? I mean, all these conventions and gatherings for horror cons and comic cons and everything like that is really to sell the opportunity for fans to celebrate and enjoy and hopefully meet some of their star favorites and to kind of take that away from them. I mean, the pandemic enough has been a real pain in the butt for a lot of people who are sitting around home. But to be able to get open and out and still do some of these things, that's a real godsend nowadays.
It is, it is, it is. We all want to be safe, but we still want to enjoy our lives. So it's all about kind of finding a compromise between those two things
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
trying to work through it. Like I've gone to a number of events that were inside, where we do temperature checks, and they let a certain number of people in the room at the time, and people wear masks and things like that. And I think it's better to do that than for have everybody just being depressed or lethargic and things like that. We want to try to, it's very important for the human soul and the human emotionally for us to try to come together as best as we can. I think during this time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, it's if everybody does their part, right? I mean, this is unfortunately like this goes back to my whole theory of things. If everybody just tried a little more, the pandemic wouldn't be a problem, war wouldn't be a problem, famine wouldn't be a problem. Like everybody just kind of pitches in and shares and works together. Now, it's amazing to see the amount of people, of course, that have come together, especially up here in Canada. Our cases are relatively low because everybody kind of banded together and shut things down and helped out. And there's a lot of people down in the U.S. It's nice to see that people are putting, if they've got extra food or if they've got the resources, they're putting it out there for people who are in need. So if we could continue doing that, it would be a different world, I think.
Oh, for sure. And then, Canada has, I think, 1/10 the population of the United States, and you have a
Hmm.
lot of land mass. So that's really helpful. The problem that I think we run into in America with like New York City and stuff is that there's so many people in such a small area
Yeah, yeah.
that that's like something that I guess we're battling with in America is that our population, New Jersey, New York City, over such a small land mass.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, because, if you go to some parts of America, there's virtually no cases because it's
Yeah,
more rural, it's a little bit more spread out.
yeah, yeah.
It's like night and day. Like I
Yeah.
was just in Smithville, there were like almost no cases there because it's very spread out. I
Mhm.
was in Utica, New York State, and they had almost no cases there because it's almost kind of rural.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you go to New York City or you go to like the densely populated regions in New Jersey, and it's like everywhere. So a
Mhm.
lot of it kind of depends on the population density, it seems.
Yes, exactly, right? I mean, we've got our metropolis up here of the Toronto area, and of course, it's been pretty rampant, and and it really it does come down to close quarters, right? I mean, just imagine what England and stuff would have to deal with for how tight everything is there. So it's
Oh,
oh
exactly right. Yeah, it is a challenge. And then, and then we have certain groups of people that live with their family in very close quarters and things like that. It's difficult. It's difficult. There's so many different variables to take into consideration. Every country is handling this differently, but then every country has all these different, variables to deal with that are completely different.
yeah, yeah,
That's
definitely.
I've been studying like what Europe is doing, what Asia's doing, what we're doing, what everybody's doing, and it just and it's like who's right and who's wrong, but
Mhm.
everybody maybe has a different solution based on their country
Yeah, exactly.
and
The
their population
population.
and how dense it is and all that stuff. And it might even vary from area to area, as
Mhm,
well.
mhm.
So
Well, it's true, right? I mean, you've got a ton of countries that just don't have the medical supplies or needs that the country necessarily needs, right? I mean, you got a lot of third
yeah,
world countries
yeah.
that just don't.
But that's enough of that. We'll go back to the horror movies. Everybody needs an escape, I think,
Exactly.
from the pandemic. That's something that we're living with every day. But horror movies, fantasy movies, going and seeing your favorite actors, watching movies, that can be like a great escape. I know when we started with this whole thing, I was home watching all of my crazy horror movies. I was watching some ones that were a little fitting. Like, what did I watch? I watched Vincent Price and The Last Man on Earth.
Okay. Yeah.
I was watching The Stand, the miniseries from like the 90s.
Oh, that was a great one.
Yeah, that was great. Or like Mask of the Red Death was like another one that was kind of fitting. I was finding ones that were kind of a little bit fitting of what we're going through and things like that. Kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But watching movies and all this stuff is all kind of about escape, and that's one of the reasons why people are missing the conventions and all that kind of stuff now. To a certain degree, in some parts of the country, they are doing some conventions. I think, like in like less densely populated states that maybe have been less affected, and everybody's wearing a mask and they're doing temperature checks and letting a small group of people in, and we'll see how that all pans out. Maybe that'll end up being, something that we'll be able to do more and more and kind of keep things going for people. Yeah. But I just had talk with somebody today about a potential film project that we'll be working on maybe in November or December that I can't really release yet. No. But like a series, like a TV series kind of thing. Oh, so, and then I have some other horror movies coming up that I look forward to working on, including one called Jasper. There's another one called Brain Hunter, and another one called Z Dead End. And then I just got cast in one that I'll be filming out in Kentucky called Vampire Santa.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he's Santa Claus, but he's also a vampire.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's
that just got added to my IMDb, so I'm looking forward to doing that soon. And we got to just kind of push forward and keep ourselves busy and stuff. And I just filmed something remotely called, what was it? The Witch. What was it? Something Witches. Oh my God, it's on my IMDb. Now I can't remember the name. Brink Stevens is in it. Linnea Quigley is in it. A whole bunch of people. What is it? Something of the Witches.
Okay.
And we just filmed that recently with a whole bunch of really exciting people. We also filmed a movie called Central Authority remotely.
Okay.
So that we did that one. I did a documentary recently remotely, and just kind of keeping myself, busy,
Yeah. The film you were thinking of was the Witches of the Sands?
That's it, Witches of the Sands. Yeah, I was thinking like Witches of the Mist, but Witches of the Sands. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Brink Stevens is in that, which I always grew up really loving her and her movies and stuff. She always seemed like a cool lady. And then a whole bunch of other really cool people as well. So.
Yeah. I was looking at your IMDb and I had seen that Vampire Santa one, and I, without of course looking at any type of synopsis or anything, I thought, what a great idea if it turns around to find out the reason why that Santa has been immortal is because this whole time he's been a vampire. So
that's why his favorite color is red.
Yeah. So cool. What a great thought.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, and that's why he always looks the same, and he's always like delivering the toys and whatever. Yeah. That would be interesting. So we're looking forward to working on that one. I was just speaking to the director and producer the other day. It's going to be filmed out in Kentucky. We have a lot of really cool people as part of the cast, and that's going to be kind of one of those fun, over-the-top kinds of movies that people really love. Mm-hmm. That's like something that's very popular in the genre. People really love these over-the-top, insane movies. Like, I directed a short film that's turning into a feature right now called Attack of the Killer Chickens, the movie.
Yes, that's right. It was a little while back that you had kind of originally came up with that idea, right?
Oh, yeah, it was a couple of years ago that I did the short film, and then that short film blossomed into a feature film that we've been working on.
Yeah, so that's very, very cool. I also find interesting that you and I have a mutual friend. Actually, a couple mutual friends.
Oh,
but of course, we have Stacy Toy and Lloyd Kaufman.
Oh, there you go. Well, Stacy and I worked together on 100 Acres of Hell.
Yep.
And that was a couple years ago, and that recently got distribution. I pop up in a really fun cameo. And that's a really cool movie, though. I recommend that to everybody. It's a very high quality horror film. I think it's really well acted. Has good cinematography. And I'm not going to give away the ending, but the ending will definitely throw you for a loop.
Oh, I love those type of movies. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to check that out. And if you're a fan of wrestling, Gene Snitsky is one of the stars who WWE. So.
Yep. I was looking at the trailer of it, and it looks fantastic. I can't wait to watch it myself. Some of these films are not as easy to come by up here in Canada. I think it's just because the streaming platforms that they're on, they're maybe more readily available in the US than the Canadian version, which I think is a bunch of BS because, make it readily available across the world. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I always wonder what that's like because like a lot of my movies, I think 35 or so are on Amazon Prime, and that seems like that's a pretty accessible thing.
mhm, mhm.
And then obviously I've had some things on Netflix and Redbox, but then there's all these other websites and stuff, and you do wonder how accessible they are in other countries. Like if somebody in Japan wanted to watch it or something like that, would they able to find it? Would they not?
Yeah.
I did a horror convention a couple of years ago in Birmingham, United Kingdom, and I was kind of surprised at what movies people knew me for and what movies they didn't know me for.
Mhm.
Like one was I think called Haunting Day, which was like a short film that I did in Long Island a couple years ago, and some 24-year-old guy had seen that, and I was like, how did you even see that in England?
Yeah.
But it must be on some platform that he had access to that he saw. Because I just sometimes you just don't realize what things really reach people the most.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So
It's interesting.
it's
Um,
still a mystery sometimes, right? I mean, I'll see a movie that I really, really wanna watch, and I check all my streaming services, and I'm just like, "Where am I gonna" so I have to, like, Google, "Where is this streaming?" And every once in a while, I'll see something like a great horror flick, and then it says, "Oh, it's on Shudder." So I push the Shutter so it'll go over to the app, and then it goes to the app, and then it's just blank, so I assume there's an American Shutter and there's a Canadian Shutter.
Maybe, and maybe some things get this distribution for a certain period of time, and maybe they're taken off and new movies are
Mm,
put on. I'm not sure. Like when something goes to Netflix or Netbox, like how long does it stay on there?
yeah, yeah,
Or Amazon Prime or anything like that? Is it like permanently up there sometimes, or maybe some movies just stay up there for a certain amount of time? And if you
yeah,
don't watch them in that time period, maybe they become harder to watch.
yep, yeah,
You know,
well,
I watch a lot of like old movies and things like that, and some of them are really, really hard to find. Like I'm a fan of Joe D'Alessandro that did like the Andy Warhol movies, and some
okay,
of his films are like impossible to find, even though they have a big cult following.
yeah.
But they're still like you really got to like track them down. I guess it's just like that. If you're writing books that aren't mainstream, and if you're in movies that aren't 100% mainstream, I guess they just become hard to find.
Yeah, yeah, it's true, and you know what? But eventually it gets around, and that's the beautiful thing about a lot of the electronic media is, even though it might be regional at the moment, it doesn't mean that it's not going to cross over and eventually make it everywhere else. It just takes a little longer. That's all.
Yeah, some movies are just hard to get, and sometimes they're almost designed that way. Like I did one movie called Hunters, directed by Adam Albrandt. I'm in that with Linnea Quigley and a bunch of really other talented people, and it's a really edgy and cool movie. And some distributors didn't want to touch it because maybe it was a little too controversial.
Mm,
And as a result, a certain number of it were available on Blu-ray and DVD online, and that's been a blessing and a curse because I think all the DVDs and Blu-rays are worth quite a bit of money for people that really want them.
yes, yeah,
So it kind of goes both ways because they are kind of hard to get, and then sometimes I guess that's a good thing because then you end up charging more for each individual film and things like that. Sometimes these rare movies are like that. You
yeah,
might end up spending like $80 on something that's kind of hard to come by, but then
yeah.
it might appreciate in value in a couple of years too, especially if you get signed by cast members the next convention that you go to.
That's exactly it. Yeah, and then of course, if it is rare, then you're one of the few lucky people that actually has a copy of it, right?
Exactly. It'll probably just become more rare as time goes on,
Yeah,
especially if you have those signatures on it and stuff. Who knows? Maybe one day you'll be selling it for a couple $100s. Who
yeah,
knows?
yeah.
Or
Maybe it'll just sit on your shelf as your own personal trinket or collectible that you're just like, nope, this will be with me forever, and then I'll pass it on to the next generation.
Well, yeah, that's the thing when you get these collectibles is that sometimes you get attached to them, you hate giving them up. Like I just went to a toy show and I found out some like werewolf stuffed animal that I bought for $20 a few years ago is worth like 100 now.
Oh wow.
But I don't know if I could part with him. He's like my bro.
Yeah.
He's like a really cute werewolf stuffed animal, and I've had him for like a few years, and I don't know, would it even be worth $100 for me to sell him?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You
Well,
have to kind of weigh that. If it's something that really means a lot to you and you like having around, would you even sell
yeah.
it? Maybe if it appreciates to a certain value, maybe if he was worth 1,000, I might feel differently. I don't know.
You never know, right? Certain things are just they mean so much more to you than the dollar value eventually, right? You could be like, 100 is pretty good for this stuffed toy, but then you're like, oh, but I've had it for so long, and there's always been like either a joke or something that you've had people over and someone saw it, and then it brings back a memory or something, and then you just weigh whether or not it's even worth getting rid of.
Yeah, or some kind of sentimental value to it and things like that. That you have a certain attachment to these objects that we all had and things like
Yeah,
that. It's hard to say. It's hard to say, but
yeah,
yeah, But I'm excited to keep busy making more movies and keep myself doing things. Witches of the Sands was a fun movie to do. They got really an amazing cast. That's like actually a film based in the United Kingdom. And then they end up with an international cast of people that are filming a lot of their scenes remotely, and some of it's being filmed in the United Kingdom as well.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm seeing more and more, and of course, I think it's just an example of the times, but people doing these remote filmings, right? You've got a little studio here, or they'd be like, "Hey, no, actually, one I saw the other day, oh, I wish I remember the director that was working on it right now, but he was filming it's kind of like a mutant, um, I don't know if it was Mutant Bikini Girls from Outer Space or something like that. And it was interesting because he was having people shoot themselves in different areas with their cell phones. And then he was post production putting all the alien features and everything in, which I thought was a really great idea, right? I mean, given everything that's going on, the movie will still go on. It still happens. And then you also have so many more people that can get involved with it and share it out. And I thought it was a brilliant idea.
Well, and I think a lot of like actors and people in the arts have this like we all think and the show must go on kind of idea,
Yep.
and that's something that's like really kind of like a work ethic that a lot of performers have had over the years. I often think of one of my father's favorite actors, Lou Costello. If anybody
Mm,
remembers him from Bud Abbott and Lou Costello,
love it.
the day his son drowned, he still performed.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, because to him he couldn't disappoint the fans, even though he had just faced probably the greatest tragedy of his life.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I
He
wasn't aware of
still
that.
performed. You know,
Yeah,
and a lot of people are like that. So, and we see that even now that they feel like one way or another they're going to find a way to perform and to keep at their craft and do this. And to a certain degree, it's a little bit of an escape and a good way to kind of vent your emotions and things like that creatively.
yeah,
A lot of people become more creative during these time periods. Like I think William Shakespeare wrote King Lear during the Black Plague.
yep. Mhm, mhm.
So sometimes, so great art might really come out of this time period, and great films and great everything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, tragedy can bring a lot of creativity out of people, and I also find that with everything that happens, depending on even on the time period and stuff, there grief can last for a long time. So if you're in a project, the best thing to do is let's complete the project so then you can focus on you and your family and grieve properly and then move on.
Well, it's probably something true too. Yeah, yeah. You have to give yourself maybe some time to grieve through things and then work on to
Mhm.
other things and stuff. Like I was actually a zombie in Army of the Dead a while
Mhm.
ago, which is a Netflix film that'll probably be released at some point. It had like a budget of like 90 million or something like that. I
Oh,
had applied for it thinking it was just like an indie film, Zombies Wanted or something like that. And
yep.
I sent my pictures, like they wanted a headshot and like a full body view, like in a bikini, and to be a zombie. And then they got me back, and they were like, "Can you send more pictures? We're thinking about you right now and trying to see if you're going to fit what we're looking for." And then it ended up being Zack Schneider's Army of the Dead, and
Okay. Yep.
and that was his first film after he went through a period where I think he lost his daughter,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he took a couple years, I think, off. Where he, from what I was reading online, he seemed like a very nice man. I think he did like a lot of volunteer work and things like that to kind of process his loss and kind of work through it with his
Mhm, mhm.
family. And then this was his movie that he decided to do when he was like ready and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
He seemed like a very nice man, Zack Schneider. So I look forward to seeing Army of the Dead when it comes out. And I play two separate zombies in it. If you look at
Okay.
my IMDb, I play a nun zombie,
Okay.
and then I also play like a more athletic looking zombie that looks a little bit closer to what I actually look like.
Okay. Very cool. I thought when you were gonna say, when they basically contact you back and saying, "We need to see more pictures, we need to see more pictures," I'd be like, "How legit is this film?" You know?
Oh yeah, you never know with that. Like if I've had people get back to me, because you never know how legit anything is. Like where they'll be like, "Can you send me pictures of yourself in the shower?" Or like you naked because we're considering you for the part. Don't worry, I won't show it to anyone.
Yeah.
But this was something I guess because in different movies we notice like whether it's like Night of the Living Dead or Walking Dead,
Mhm.
people have a different idea of how they want their zombie to look,
That's right.
like what kind of face and what kind of body type.
Mhm.
And I guess they were, Zack Schneider and his people were being like looking at everybody's pictures and seeing if they conformed to what their ideal zombie was for this particular film project.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you look at the different zombies, like in every movie and every TV show, they do kind of conform to a different aesthetic.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, you've got sometimes very heavy set ones, and you got very emaciated zombies and stuff, and they obviously have to look for a very slim body type to even pull that off, even with additional makeup and shading and stuff. When they really want to make someone look very thin and gaunt, you have to get someone quite thin to begin with.
Exactly, yeah, and they were looking for a very particular maybe type of face, maybe a very particular body type, maybe even certain like hair colors and things like that.
Hmm.
Because when you got there, you kind of saw that, like gee, I kind of maybe conformed to what they were looking for, more or less.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. That's very cool.
And
Um,
acting's like that. A lot of times whether or not you get picked for a role is kind of arbitrary. It's not that like you're not pretty enough or you're not this enough or not that enough. It's like whether or not you fit what they're looking for. Like, are you in the right age bracket? Maybe you're too young. Maybe
yeah.
you're a little too old for the part. Maybe you're too short. Maybe you're too tall. Maybe you're too blonde. Maybe you're too redheaded. Who
Mhm.
knows? It's like whatever the director and the producer's vision of what that character would be.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's arbitrary, and a lot of times it doesn't really have anything to do with you.
Yeah. It's funny because I actually, when you say that, it makes me think of, when they film for movies, with Tom Cruise in it, because he's not a very big guy, right? So, do they find actresses that are shorter than him, or did they just level the stage out so that they always stand slightly lower than he does?
I think, well, he ended up being, and what was that movie? Oh, I forgot what it was, but with Nicole Kidman, they were famously in a movie together
Oh,
years ago,
yes,
right?
Days of
And
Thunder.
she's taller than him. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
think they must have put him up on a box or something like that during their scenes together, so that, or she must have been like in something like where their heights kind of balance out.
Yeah, I mean, she's considerably taller than he is. I think she's something like 6'2", and he's only like 5'6" or 5'8" or something. It's a big difference in height.
Exactly. And then I do think a lot of male actors are shorter than you would realize too.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
don't think I think he's not the only one. I think like a lot of them are shorter than you would actually think.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always surprised when I see like you see the really big guys like Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you're thinking these guys are monsters, and then when you see their height, you're like, I'm taller than they are.
Oh yeah, exactly right, exactly right. A lot of them I think are shorter, and it's just like it's how they shoot them, the angle and things like that that make them seem larger than life when you see them in
Yeah.
actual film.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Exactly.
and things like that. Yeah, it's pretty interesting, but that's true of a lot of them. A lot of them, and then some people I think argue that sometimes some having actors that aren't too tall is maybe ideal because it's easier to frame them in the shot with everybody else.
Yes. Yeah.
Things
Exactly.
like that. But I think there have been some really tall actors like Clint Eastwood. I think is super tall.
Yeah, I think he is quite a tall person. So
Yes, I don't think it necessarily limits you. Your height maybe doesn't matter as much as you think it
yeah.
does, whether you're a little short or a little tall. They can always kind of mess with it and make you seem shorter, make you seem taller if they need to, depending on the role.
Yeah, exactly. Everything can be balanced out with camera angles nowadays, which is
Yeah, but when you're like a zombie and you're like in a zombie horde, they usually like want everybody more or less the same. Like maybe they want everybody to be between 5'7" and 5'10" or something like that. They might have like a certain parameters, so nobody's like sticking out as like 6'4" or something like that, or like or like 5 feet tall. They want everybody to be kind of a little bit more uniform for
yep.
your zombie horde, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But other kinds of acting work, it probably matters a little bit less. But it's interesting. But that's what you have to remember as an actor, that a lot of times it's just not personal whether or not you're chosen for a role when you submit. You just might not fit what they envision that character looking for. That's why they have these big giant casting calls where they look at like hundreds or thousands of people, because they have this image maybe in their mind of what this character should look like.
Yes. Yeah.
Like when they did the casting call for Harry Potter, like Harry Potter had to look a very particular way, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So speaking of like Halloween traditions and stuff like that, when we first started off, what is your Halloween tradition?
That's a good question. What do I do traditionally on Halloween? Well, usually every Halloween, probably not this one, but every other Halloween, I usually get booked up solid with all these tarot card reading, fortune telling gigs, where I usually am like running around like a crazed person, doing party after gig after gig, because I hate to say no to anything that pays a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I'm just like doing all of that. But this year probably going to be a little slower with that, because there have been some gigs that I've done and then some I declined. Based on how much they paid and whether or not it's worth taking some kind of risk if I don't feel like it's a safe enough gig or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to weigh all that out this year. It all depends on what your comfort level is and things like that. And some events are being much safer about things than others. And then, and then it also depends on what your personal preferences or your comfort zone is, because everybody's kind of different when it comes to this right now.
Yep, that's true. Yeah.
Some of my friends are living their lives not very differently than they were before, except maybe they're wearing a mask and washing their hands more. Okay. And then some of my friends are staying home an awful lot, depending on what your health is and, what your sensitivity to risk is. And nothing's right or wrong. You have to do what's right for you.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
So normally I would be busy doing things like that, and I would be going to Halloween parties and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm doing this year is I did some, events that were social distance and safe. And then I'm probably going to be doing something outside. We're going to be going to like these outdoor haunted kinds of events. And I'm going to Wild West City, most likely, which is an outdoor Wild West theme park where they're having an outdoor socially distanced kind of Halloween event.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so it's nice to see that there's still lots of venues, and again, like you said, it depends on what kind of safety precautions has everybody got in place. I mean, the more safe they've got things, then the more likely you're going to want to attend them.
Oh yeah, I think that's a big thing right now, is that if you're going to an event, or even if you're going to a pizzeria or whatever, if you go there and you feel like the people are really on top of things and they're being safe, you're going to be much more likely to go to that particular place and buy their pizza or go to their event. I've been to a bunch of shows recently that have been really good about, making sure people are wearing masks, doing temperature checks, having only a certain number of people in the room at the time, having Purell around and things like that. Like some places are really definitely going above and beyond, and then some places are kind of lacking. And that could really have a huge effect on your business right now. You're probably going to make a huge amount of money if you seem like you're being really careful and people are confident in you.
Yeah, for sure. Right? Now, you were saying at this point you get quite booked with tarot readings at this time of year. Is that because the conditions are more right for tarot readings? Is it because people find more enjoyment at this time of year with tarot readings, or?
Well, the belief, I think, is that Halloween is when the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest. And it's easier to communicate with the dead and things like that. And sometimes that can kind of come up when you're doing tarot card reading and mediumship. There's some times when I've done readings for people where, maybe people that have died in their lives have come up a lot.
Okay.
And then other times it doesn't come up at all. It just kind of varies, I guess, depending on the person that you're reading and things like that. And then I think, the Halloween season just kind of gets everybody into this supernatural, paranormal kind of mood where they really want to have fortune telling a session with somebody. But certain times are like that. Like I've done, Halloween parties. Some people are really interested in getting a reading for the new year. See how their new year is going to go.
Yeah.
Some people might want to do it for like their birthday. I've even done like baby showers and bridal showers where maybe people want to see what that's going to be like for them. And I've also done weddings, believe it or not, where I've been at a wedding doing readings.
That's really cool. I'm glad that so many people are thinking outside of the box, right? That's it's neat.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then charity events, like I remember I did like an autism event a while ago where it was at a beautiful country club, and they had everybody like got these tokens to do different kinds of games and events, and one of them was getting your fortune told. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's neat. I like that.
Yeah, you pop up at all weird different kinds of events, and then like a lot of times I end up at these college parties. I remember one year was really funny. I ended up doing like a 5th grade Halloween party, which was really cute. It's really hard to tell like 5th graders things about their lives because their lives are kind of basic at that point.
Yeah.
School, parents, homework, things like that. So that's kind of cute. And then also graduation parties sometimes comes up too.
Okay. Yeah.
Because people are graduating from high school and they're like, what does the future hold?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I know a lot of tarot readers have a tendency to try to steer clear of like longevity of life.
Oh,
'Cause,
well,
the first
we
thing
want to
people
try
want
to
to say.
keep things kind of upbeat, and we try not to go on, I guess, and especially when you're doing it at an event, when
Yeah.
there's like lots of people you're reading, and maybe you have a client that you want to keep happy. You don't want to kind of get bogged down with any kind of negative kinds of things, with people. Yeah, so and also I think there's always that fear that you're going to create like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if you told somebody they were going to die at a certain age, maybe like that you might be cursing the person in a sense, because sometimes the power of the mind. If somebody believes something's going to happen, maybe it will.
Yeah. It's true. You could be like, oh man, I've only got 10 years left. Well, screw it. I'm gonna go sail around the world. And then all of a sudden you end up like having a boating accident or something, which maybe have never happened if you didn't have that timeline put on you.
Oh, exactly. And there are cases of people that like, psychologically, like they know that someone cursed them or whatever. And then just like the psychological effect of all the stress and everything, like end up causing them a heart attack or something like that.
Yeah.
There's like a certain, there's a power to prayer, but there's also a power sometimes to like some of this negative stuff too. Like I remember reading somewhere, Anton LaVey, who founded like the Church of Satan, he in the 70s, he wrote like a little curse out to somebody and mailed it to them, and they really did die. But if like the leader of the Church of Satan sent you a letter that you were cursed, that might really have some psychological effects on you and your stress levels and your heart and the probability of you having a heart attack or a stroke or something like that, because that would seem pretty serious and pretty crazy,
Yeah.
And you might believe it on some level. So I would think you want to kind of stay away from things like that because you don't know for a fact if you're giving someone accurate information, and you don't want to create a self-fulfilling prophecy. And self-fulfilling prophecies, there's a lot of evidence to support psychologically that is a thing. Like if somebody believes something to be real, it may become real. And and I think, and ultimately, I think when you're doing readings with people, you want to keep in mind that I think you ultimately have control over your future, your destiny, your life, and things like that. You never know. It's like, nothing's probably necessarily set in stone. Our decisions, you might make different decisions. Then, who knows what decisions you're going to make. You might just end up taking a different course with your life than the cards think you're going to take.
Yep.
Because you end up doing that, There's always that element of free will,
Yep, that's right. That's true. So very interesting. Now, I wanted to ask you one more question actually before we get into our rapid fire questions here. And so you've done so many different roles in so many different versions of like horror genres. So everything from like witches to vampires to werewolves and all these zombies and all these different kind of films. What has been your most favorite character to play?
Well, that's an interesting one. My favorite characters, I guess the characters that you play or that you always enjoy the most as an actor is maybe the ones that you thought you couldn't imagine yourself playing, that are maybe the furthest from who you are. That you think that's going to be a challenge. Like I know when I did Apocalypse Kiss, and I played like a 9-month pregnant like hippie character, and I give birth in the movie. I'm like, that's pretty, different.
Yeah.
That's something you don't get to give birth and be 9th month pregnant in a movie, and you
Mhm.
have to and you have that challenge of making that believable. You're not actually in that situation. Or
Yeah.
then I'm in a movie like Hunters where I'm like a crazy person running around stabbing somebody, and I have a Southern accent, and you want to make that believable. Here I am. I'm a Southern person. I am a murderer, and you have to just like convey that as realistically as possible, even though that's probably very far from who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's always the roles that you thought you couldn't play that end up being the ones that are the most fun, or the ones that are most different from who you are.
Yeah.
Maybe playing like a supernatural character is always kind of cool because that's very distant from who you are. Playing a witch, playing a Satanist, playing like a vampire, playing like a zombie. Something like that is kind of always interesting because it's like you want to put on this realistic performance. Like real acting, really good acting, you don't even realize the person's doing it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
feel like that's almost just them.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know?
Yeah. True. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I guess right up there, your other thing could just be wielding a chainsaw. So, I don't necessarily know that you would do that on a regular basis.
Oh yeah, there's one movie called Dead Men Tell No Tales where I have a chainsaw,
Yes.
and that was really interesting because I showed up in West Virginia and I learned how to use a chainsaw that day. I never used a chainsaw before. It doesn't really come up that much living in the New York City area.
No.
You imagine that people hear me in my apartment with my chainsaw. Probably call the police. It doesn't even come up. There's
Exactly.
nothing I would really be doing with it that would be good, probably in my
Yeah.
neighborhood. It's not like I'm chopping down trees around here or anything like that. There aren't that many trees.
No. Yeah, I would imagine in a like an apartment complex or a condo or something in the middle of downtown Manhattan or something, and someone fires up a chainsaw, there's something afoot.
Yeah, like how many people in the New York City area even own a chainsaw? And why would they own a chainsaw? Imagine that you went over to somebody's house and they had a chainsaw. You'd be like, why do you have a chainsaw living in Manhattan? Like, what are you going to do with that chainsaw? That would be very suspect. So I
Yeah.
went up there and I had to learn how to use the chainsaw. And it was a very cute, like kind of like lightweight chainsaw. It wasn't particularly heavy. And we had to do chainsaw 101 and things like that. And they were showing me how to use the chainsaw. And they seemed like they knew what they were doing. But then I found out later that they were actually struggling with the chainsaw before I got there.
That's good.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So they were even having a hard time because maybe chainsaws vary. Maybe that was like a tricky chainsaw to use. That was the only chainsaw I've ever used, so I can't compare it to other chainsaws.
Yeah.
My one friend Robert that lives out in Long Island, he was like, "That's a really good chainsaw." He's like, "I have one like that." And I'm like, "Okay," because he lives out in a little bit more of a suburban area where I guess maybe he would need a chainsaw for something.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
takes trees out of his yard himself or something like that. Maybe he owns a lot of property. But he's handy, I guess, to have a chainsaw. But I can't imagine why you would even own one because you're probably not going to use it that much.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
How often do you use a chainsaw?
You have this model, this one right here. Do you know if it's particularly good for body parts or just other types of limbs?
Yeah, unless you're like Leatherface or something like that.
Right.
Like how often do we really need to use a chainsaw? Can you just rent one? Because what's the
Yeah.
point of really owning one, and how much do they cost? Things to think about. So I'm in my Braun panties, like animal print Braun panties, and I'm running around killing people with chainsaw, and there's blood splattering and things like that. And then when people see the picture of me holding it, they're like, you really should be wearing protective glasses.
You're like, is that what you're worried about?
Yeah. I'm like, that's probably a good point, but it's a movie, and I'm not really putting it into anything. So I guess we decide not to do that. But if we wanted to do proper, I guess, chainsaw safety, I think I would probably have protective glasses. Maybe I would even have headphones on because it's kind of
Right.
a loud thing. Maybe I would, probably a lot of different things would be in place,
Pants,
Yeah, exactly. I'd probably be wearing clothes and
Yeah.
things like that when I was using my chainsaw, I would think.
Right.
But
Like,
it's a
really,
horror
you
movie.
feel like I need glasses to how about some pants? Because yeah.
Yeah, eye safety, but clothes.
Yeah, they're like, no, it's okay. You're okay with what you're wearing. Eye safety is important.
Yeah, that's like what we're really like focusing on there. But yeah, it's interesting. That was the one time I got to use a chainsaw cassette. That was kind of interesting. It kind of opens yourself up a little bit to the kinds of interesting things that you get to do. I'm going to say one film that I did that was really interesting was Herschel Gordon Lewis's Blood Mania. We filmed that in Calgary, Canada, a couple years ago. and the person that worked on it, Dave Trainer, was our makeup artist, and he's worked on Fargo. And
Okay. Yeah.
I had a scene in there that was very bloody and very gross. And I remember like thinking to myself, I've been in over 100 horror movies, and I think that was the one scene that made me a little nauseous
Oh, really?
because it was very realistic. Even when I was in the scene, it
Mhm.
looked very real,
Wow.
which is not always the case. But in this
No.
particular case, the way everything was set up, it looked very, very real, even in the moment. You
And you're just
know,
like,
I'm like, I hope I'm not really cutting off my leg. Like,
right?
yeah,
Whose leg is that? That is a mannequin leg, right?
because I'm like that looks like I kind of am. Wow, and it just like it looks so real. Whereas sometimes when you do these movies and like you're cutting off somebody's head, the way we do it is kind of in the editing process. That when you're
Mm.
chopping off their head, it doesn't really seem like you're chopping off anybody's head.
Yes. Yeah.
It's something that we kind of put it all together later on.
Yeah. All done in post-production. Yeah.
Exactly. So sometimes when you're doing these things, they're not nearly as scary and ooky and whatever as you think they're going to be, or how they translate into film. Especially putting the CGI and things like that later.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Wonderful. All right. How about we jump into the second section of our show, and we're going to do
Okay.
a few quick questions. So again, these are some quick questions. If you don't know the answer, you can just say pass, or other than that, just give us the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
All right. What made-up word would you register into the English dictionary?
I made up the word that I would
Mhm.
register. Pass. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yep. Not a problem. What is the scariest dream you've ever had?
Falling.
Falling. Yep. Like a very high height, I'm assuming. It's not like
Yeah,
you're
very
running
high.
down the street and you skinned
Just
your
like
knee.
falling. Imagine like being up at like a really, really high height and then just having like seconds or even minutes of just falling and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Ooh,
sure.
so probably
Um,
that.
yeah. What superpower would you prefer? Like, if you could have any superpower, which one would you want to have?
Flying.
Flying. Yeah, that one's always popular. Uh,
Yeah.
what is your earliest childhood memory?
I remember being a little, I guess a baby or a toddler and jumping out of my crib and escaping. Like,
Oh, I see. I was good at that too.
yeah. But I remember doing it and I remember how exactly I did do it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's cool. What makes you the happiest?
What makes me the happiest? I like being busy, doing different things like going out places, making movies, reading tarot cards, hanging out with friends, being social. So I think I'm the happiest when I'm keeping myself busy with things,
Okay.
especially creative things, artistic things, and social things.
All right. Would you like to learn a foreign language, and if so, which language?
Oh my goodness, I've tried learning foreign languages, and as an American, it's so challenging because we don't really, we're so far away from other countries.
Yep.
You Canadian people speak English, and so Europeans really have the advantage with that. I have taken some Italian classes because some people in my family speak Italian and things like
Okay.
that. But that's a challenging one because then it's so rare that you meet anyone that speaks Italian.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
But
Yeah.
I would like that. Yeah,
Italian, that's cool.
yeah, beautiful
Um,
language.
oh, here's a good one. What decade would you like to live in? If you can go through time and live in any decade.
Oh, I always feel like maybe like I really like the 60s and the 70s. Probably the 70s even more than the 60s, though. A lot of people say my apartment has a lot of like a 1970s kind of mod aesthetic. And
Okay.
then when I go to thrift stores, I always end up buying like a lot of 1970s mod. Even though I wasn't alive during that time period, I'm always like very attracted to that aesthetic.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
also like the decor and things like that. And you can really that stuff was so well made that if you go to an antique store or you go to a vintage store, you can find a lot of it that's in really good condition.
That's true. Yeah, it's still together and still going strong. You can't find
Exactly.
that. You can't find that with like today's clothing. That's for sure.
No, they're not going to have them in thrift stores like 50 years from now. But like 1970 stuff is really cool. Like I said, I have a couple mod jackets. I have like a raincoat. I have a whole bunch of stuff from that era, and I just feel like the style there like really had like this cool kind of pizzazz to it. Especially like the mod,
Yeah,
era.
yeah. That's really cool. What was the first movie that made you cry?
Oh, the first movie that made me cry. Oh, there's probably every movie makes me cry. Oh, I'm the kind of person almost every movie that I watch makes me cry. I was watching some old Elizabeth Taylor movie last night that I think was like had been on television and that made me cry. Almost everything makes me cry. I'm Italian, so I'm a American person, and I'm like very emotional, and my emotions are always on the surface. So if there's any movie that is even slightly emotionally,
Just tugs on those heartstrings.
yeah, like I remember I watched Independence Day with my friend Alex. I watched Phenomenon with John Travolta. We were both crying for Phenomenon with John Travolta. People when they watch like Titanic or like Romeo and Juliet. It's like almost anything can really make you cry if you're like in that mindset. Titanic, yeah, Titanic. I think a lot of people cried for that movie. That's like one of the biggest crying movies I think ever made.
Yeah,
right? Like they made that movie essentially so you could just like cry, especially at the end and things like that.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see what horror movie has ever made me cry. The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price was a little bit of a tearjerker.
Okay.
That actually had some really emotional scenes, with him like losing his family and being like the last human being left.
Yeah, for sure.
And Vincent Price was such a good actor too.
Oh, I miss Vincent Price. Just his voice alone was so iconic. It was so good. Yeah.
Oh yeah. He had a perfect. He was perfectly wonderful actor. He had a great look, great voice, great everything. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, do you believe in aliens?
Yes.
All right, excellent. That's good. That's always one of my favorite. I'm always interested on the amount of people that actually believe that there's something more than themselves. So, okay, what exotic animal would you domesticate if PETA wasn't all over you?
Oh, what wild animal would I want to domesticate and have as a pet?
Yeah.
Maybe a pig.
A pig. Okay.
Pig.
Yeah. Pigs are quite cute. Apparently, they're quite smart.
And they're supposed to be kind of loving. I've seen some people online that actually have pet pigs. Depends on where you live, though, and the zoning laws, I think.
Oh, okay. I see. Yep. What gets on your nerves?
Ooh, I don't like it when I don't like people arguing all the time, especially over politics and stuff like that. I think we just all have to respect everybody's opinion and their views a little bit more. Sometimes we have to agree to disagree. I live in a democracy, and I respect that I live in a democracy, and I believe everybody has a right to vote for whoever they want or have whatever opinion they want to have, right?
Yeah,
so that kind of annoys me sometimes. I just feel like we need to be a little bit more respectful of everybody. People of different religions and people of different groups and have different mindsets. We need to have that mutual respect for everybody. That's right. I think anybody like lacking in respect for other people probably irritates me.
Okay, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
What was the last thing you did just for yourself?
The last thing I did just for myself. Oh, that's a good question.
This is always
yeah, then I have to think about what did I do just for myself. Well, sometimes I do things like where I book trips. Like last year around this time, I booked a trip to Costa Rica, and I booked a trip to Barcelona, Spain.
Nice.
So those were things I felt like I needed to do because it was just a good thing to travel and kind of open myself up and experience different cultures and different places and experience different food and stuff like that. And then once in a while, I might give myself a spa day or something like that, where I go and kind of unwind, at the spa.
Nice to feel pampered.
Yeah, and things like that. And then one thing I always do for myself that I'm really kind of meticulous about is I exercise most days. And I like to stay, and I eat well, and I buy good food for myself and things like that. I think it's very important to be disciplined and take good care of yourself.
That's for sure. If you could eliminate a holiday off the calendar, which one would it be?
A holiday that would eliminate off the calendar. Like the celebration of the holiday?
Yeah, I feel like if you could just be like, I'm going to get rid of this holiday.
Sometimes I think I feel that way about New Year's Eve because I feel like there's so much hype attached to it.
Yeah.
And people and there's such an expectation of what the New Year's going to be, and you have to have this super big blowout on New Year's Eve, and you have to have
another night
plans, and the New Year's going to be like, oh my God, and things like that. Whereas maybe like things be a little bit more mellow. Because how many people make these New Year's resolutions that they never follow through for? And we should always be making resolutions and trying to improve ourselves and each other throughout the year. So.
Yes. Yeah. 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 I'm trying to think who we had on the show that had an amazing New Year's Eve celebration. I think it was the lead singer of the B-52s, and he was saying that every year what he does is they celebrate a different year. So they'll go on, they'll find like the ball dropping in Times Square from like 1968, and
Oh,
they'll pretend like this is 1968, and they're celebrating like the end of 68, and then the next year they'll be like, oh, we'll do 72 this year or something, and they're always celebrating a different year as opposed to the year they're in.
oh, that's interesting. I know this New Year's Eve, it seemed like a lot of people dressed for like 1920.
Really?
Yeah, that was something I saw. I don't know if that was true in Canada, but in America, a lot of people were, dressing like it was 1920. I guess with like I guess kind of like the Great Gatsby kind of era.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I watched that movie, The Great Gatsby, the one with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yep. Okay.
That was a tearjerker. Speaking of tearjerkers,
Right.
I forgot about that one. That was definitely a tearjerker.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so anything with Leonardo DiCaprio is just make you cry, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. What do you do? Yeah. What do you do when you can't fall asleep?
When I can't fall asleep, usually I can fall asleep, but when I can't fall asleep, what do I do? Maybe make a nice cup of tea, try to like relax a little bit and hang out. Um, what would make me not sleep? Usually I'm a pretty good sleeper, but I would say probably the best thing to do is maybe to make yourself some sleepy time tea and kind of try to relax and unwind a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. What is the one thing that you do that you makes you totally lose track of time?
Oh wow, probably doing social media and talking to people online.
Okay. Yeah.
That because I have like over 5,000 friends, 5,000 friends on Facebook, and then I'm also on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. And I can have so many people contacting me simultaneously that sometimes people get mad at me because I don't get back to them right away. But they don't realize how many people are contacting me. I had one guy flip that on me recently because like he said something like, "Hey, what's up?" And I have no idea who he is, but he's like on my friends list.
Okay.
And I didn't respond like right away, say like, "Hey, what's up?" Because I had like other things going on, and I'm doing my life, and I'm responding to other people on social media, directors and producers and people that I work with. Plus, I'm trying to like drive places and do things. And he like ended up flipping out, I think, and unfriending me or something like that.
I would have just responded 5,000 messages. Talk to you next month.
Yeah, some people just don't always realize that people that are actors or whatever, and that have a strong social media presence, we can really have a lot of different people contacting us all the time. Plus, we might be on a film set, or we might be trying to memorize lines, or I might be like in a Zoom meeting with like some film people that I'm working with, and it could take me hours, if not days, to get back to you. Because if I'm working a film and when I'm doing like 5 consistent days on set, like is getting back to someone I don't even know on social media like a priority? Probably not. I might not even be checking my social media at all because I'm memorizing my lines and I'm in my character and I'm focused.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
And I don't think people necessarily understand the focus that actors and probably a lot of other kinds of artists try to have. Like I'm sure ballet dancers are like that, maybe athletes. Like you want to focus. Like, if you're a football player and somebody messages you during a football game, I don't think you're going to get back to them.
No, it's true. It's true. My dad's messaged me twice just since I've been on the show, and he's going to have to wait.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the annoying things about the modern age that we live in is that we're so easy to contact.
Yes.
And that people are always expecting us to get right back to them right away. But, other things are priority. Maybe you're out with your mom and you need to focus on your mom.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you're home and you just need to focus on you, like reading a book and having a cup of tea. Maybe we don't all want to be plugged in every single moment of every single day.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
If anything, I think a lot more people could use a little unplugging from time to time. So, and
And
including
I try to do that when I'm working on a film. Like, I do not want to be connected to my phone. I put it on airplane mode or whatever, and I am working on my lines and I'm focused on that movie.
yeah,
And I don't want distractions.
yeah, exactly. Yep, good set of professionalism right there.
Yes.
What is the best thing you've ever eaten?
The best thing I've ever eaten. Well, one of my favorite foods I would have to say is Japanese food, which is sushi.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a
I
big
like that.
sushi fan nowadays. So took me a long time. My wife convinced me to eat sushi when we first started dating, and I was probably like almost kicking and screaming when she tried to take me there.
Yeah, certain foods are kind of hard for us to eat. Like, Japanese food is really yummy. Indian food is another one that I don't think I had until I was in college, but I really love
Yeah,
Indian food. I
love
just
it.
had that a couple weeks ago with a friend. It was like our
Yeah.
first time eating Indian food in a while. So I used to do Indian food buffets a lot, but they're not really doing buffets so much. So we went to a restaurant and just ordered a couple different plates of food. And
Yeah.
Indian food, people sometimes have a hard time with because it's a little exotic
Yeah. Yeah.
compared to what we're used to eating. Thai food is like that too. That's really wonderful, but it's a little
Yeah.
exotic.
Yep. For sure. For sure. The last question I have for you here is, what is your favorite podcast you've been on in the last 12 hours?
Yours, of course.
Yay! I love when there's no hesitation. That's always fantastic.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you having me on, especially right before Halloween and everything like that. I was disappointed. I apologize that I wasn't able to do that one day, but a work thing
Aw.
popped up,
No, that's
and
the
the
nature of the
person,
business.
yeah, it was like a modeling gig, and for a couple of hours, and that was the only time slot he could put me in, and money is money, and
That's right. Yeah, that's you got to make a living, and there's that we're never upset. It's always wonderful when the times work out, or if we can reschedule. But if we can't, that's totally understandable because that's the nature of doing what you do.
exactly right. That's like one of the annoying things or the problematic things of being an actor, or I'm sure musicians and lots of other fields are like that, where your schedule is always evolving and changing. Like, somebody can call you up and be like, hey, do you want to work on a film this weekend?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
things
yeah.
like that happen.
Yep. Then you got to cancel all the plans with friends and family and be like, I can't make it. I got a gig.
Oh, yeah, because sometimes, somebody gets sick, or like, we lost our actor. We need somebody new. Are you willing to do it? It
Yeah,
happens all the time. And then you have to, decide whether or not you want to step up and you want to do it. Like, that happens so often with films or cast. And then all of a sudden somebody gets bronchitis, or somebody breaks their foot or something like that. And now we have to recast the film,
yes.
and we only have 3 days to do it or something like that.
Yeah, crazy, crazy.
It's always evolving, but you have to be the kind of person that enjoys, I guess, the spontaneity of it.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of end up feeling like your life is always on standby, that you're just waiting for the next call. I mean, you're always planning like, oh, I'll do something else, but the moment that phone rings, you have to realize that everything might have to stop immediately, and you got to rush off somewhere.
It's so true, because sometimes you make plans to do something, like maybe I'll do something 1 month. I'm going to do this on such and such week, but a film project could pop up, and maybe they need you for that week.
Yeah,
So your schedule is always kind of evolving in that respect, or like a modeling gig could pop up, or whatever, and then you feel like you need to take that. And sometimes the best opportunities come at the last minute. Like, I remember, when I got my cameo in Death House, I
right.
did Death House, I think, with maybe 12 or 15 hours notice.
Oh wow.
And then they really needed actors to go out to Philadelphia to go to like this prison, and they had messaged me, and I spoke to them like the day before, and then I went the next day, like left 4 o'clock in the morning, and there you go.
Pack
And that
everything
happens a
up.
lot with acting, is that it's very spur of the moment, like you
Mhm.
think tomorrow is going to be something, but it ends up being a completely different day than you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, well, it always keeps life exciting, I guess.
Well, it does keep things interesting, and sometimes the best opportunities in life are the ones that are completely unplanned, that just come out of left field.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So
You got to go with the flow.
that's right for sure. Well, we've loved having you on the show. Before we go, of course, if do you have any social media that you'd like to plug, any projects you're working on, or charities or anything?
Oh, sure. Well, everybody check out Vampire Santa and look for that. I look for 100 Acres of Hell, which is already out.
Mhm.
Look for me in upcoming Brain Hunter, Z Dead End, Jasper, or some of my upcoming films. look me up on Amazon Prime for some of the films that I'm in. I think there's about 35. Check out my IMDb, Genoveva Rossi. I have a website. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter. And I'm always posting stuff like what I've been up to and different films that I've worked on and things along those lines. And feel free to reach out and say, hey, just give me a little while to respond. Sometimes it takes a little bit.
Yeah, don't get crazy.
Yeah, it might take a couple days. If I'm in the middle of a photo shoot or I'm in the middle of a film, I'm focused. It would be disrespectful to the director or photographer if I wasn't.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
people have to understand that. And IMDb, definitely check out because you can see the movies that I'm in. I think I just went to 106 when Vampire Santa was added the other day. And that's all since like 2012. So it's been a busy time
lot
period.
Of movie credits. Yeah.
Yeah, and even with the pandemic, I'm trying to stay as busy as possible because I think that's good for my mental health and my creative self to be doing that. And I think everybody should try to do that too. During this time, maybe we want to pour ourselves into our creativity, buy a canvas, start painting, do some arts and crafts, pour yourself into something.
Yep. Reach out to a loved one. Let them know that you're still out there.
It's true. It's true. That is a good time to reach out to loved ones and let them know that you're there. Maybe a relative you haven't spoken to in a long time or a friend,
Yep. Exactly. Well, with COVID still going and lots of places locked down, this is a perfect time to be on Netflix or Prime and checking out Genoveva's movies. I mean, with over 100 credits now, you don't have an excuse to not have watched her movies.
Yep. Look for at least one. Come on.
That's right. All you have to do is one and a good, honest review. So
yeah, that would be cool. Whether you love it or hate it, write a review.
Yeah.
Why not?
Exactly. Well, for our listeners who are on the road and haven't had a chance to catch the live feed, we'll make sure that we will post up a beautiful picture of Genoveva up on our website under our guest section, as well as all her social media links to make it easy to get in touch with you. And hopefully people will reach out, be able to answer or ask a couple questions. And if not, at least get to see some fantastic films you're in.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for having me on the show. Have a happy Halloween.
Thanks. You too. Safe and happy